Okay, time for another Zen rant by the Grapevine. I want to talk today about terminology and gatekeeping, especially the terms Qigong and Neigong. These are two terms that you will see quite often out there, and I want to try to clear things up a little bit so that you can navigate better through the very confusing world of Qigong and Tai Chi and make better decisions for yourself. So Qigong, whether it's spelled with a Q, Q-I-G-O-N-G, or the older spelling, C-H-I-K-U-N-G, is the sort of universal modern term, and that is fairly new. It's since roughly 1949 is when it became the sort of official umbrella term for lots of traditional Chinese energy work and also martial arts, because some of the martial arts overlap, like Tai Chi is the obvious example. Tai Chi is a martial art, but most people, especially for the last 100 years or so, have practiced it as a form of Qigong. So it kind of falls under the umbrella of Qigong. Now, Qigong is an old term. It just means energy cultivation, as opposed to Neigong, which means internal cultivation. So they're really similar: energy cultivation, internal cultivation. Both are ancient terms, but Qigong wasn't used for a long time. It was probably used briefly, and then went out of favor, and then they brought it back in 1949. Neigong was used more specifically during certain phases of Chinese history. But what you really need to understand is that these terms changed, right? They went in and out of favor, and there were many terms. We have like Neidan Shu, which is like internal alchemy kind of. We have Liangong, which just means like cultivating skill. We have the names of specific arts. Like in my lineage, one of the treasures is one finger shooting Zen, and they probably just called it that. They probably just called it Ijirchan, which just means one finger Zen. So these terms were not like, it's not like they were written down thousands of years ago and stayed consistent throughout. Don't let people convince you of that. And then also, don't let people convince you that, first of all, that Neigong is necessarily different than Qigong. That is not always true. So for example, my Qigong 301 program is almost entirely what would normally be considered Neigong. I mean, I teach things like the small universe, Xiaojiutian, which is the microcosmic orbit. I teach the big universe, Dajiutian, the macrocosmic orbit or the big circulation. I teach bone marrow washing, Shi Sui Jing. I teach the cosmic shower is a modern term that my ex-teacher coined, but the opening of the 5 petals is a traditional Taoist Neigong technique. So if the stuff that I'm teaching in my Qigong 301 is not Neigong, then nothing is, right? And I have been accused of, not teaching Neigong, which is just, they're not even looking at the curriculum. They're just, it's semantics. They're just focusing on one word and deciding, oh, this is this and that's that, and then they're not, moving past semantics. So the way that I would like you to understand it, I think this will be useful for you as opposed to being useful for some teacher trying to sell you something. Let me back up there. I'm a professional. I sell Qigong. I sell Qigong programs. I've done it for decades. I happen to think my programs are full of a ton of value and very affordable. I'm not criticizing people for being professionals. I just think that sometimes teachers end up confusing you, and that's the opposite of what they should be doing. A good teacher should take things that seem complex and make you confused and you're not sure what's what, and then they take your hand and they guide you and they make things easy to understand and easy to digest. That's what a good teacher should do. That's how I really try to lead my life. I've been inspired by many good teachers, not just in the world of Qigong and Tai Chi and Kung Fu, but in literature and the violin. And that's what inspires me. I want to be a good teacher. My parents are teachers. Like, this is who I am. So a good teacher will do that. They'll take complex subjects and simplify them so that you can understand them better. A bad teacher will confuse you. They will take things that are somewhat simple and then make them more convoluted and confuse you. And I think those are gatekeepers, first of all, and I stand against it. It does not serve you. Remember that when I found Qigong, I was in a bad place. I was in a depressive episode, and I was in danger, if you know what I mean. So like I needed healing desperately, and I didn't have time for gatekeeping or any of that bullshit that you'll very often find in the world of Qigong and Tai Chi. So I want to empower students to navigate better, to make better choices for themselves. They want to choose things because they will help them, like Qigong techniques. You want to choose Qigong techniques because they will help you to heal. They'll regulate your nervous system or help you with your mental health or give you more energy, or even spiritual Qigong, which a lot of what I teach in my Qigong 301 program, which we would call Shen Qigong, spiritual Qigong, non-religious, but spiritual nonetheless. What's the point? The point is to reduce your anxiety, to help you overcome your fear of death, things like that. There should be some concrete benefit that we're shooting for when we're practicing Qigong and when we're learning new types of Qigong. So just be clear that, you know, at least the way I operate and the way a lot of Qigong teachers operate now is that Qigong is at the top, it's the top of the umbrella, and then underneath it are many different terms. And it depends. So like, is Tai Chi a form of Qigong? Depends on how you practice it. But the way a lot of people practice it, yes, Tai Chi is a form of Qigong. You could include other martial arts in there, Shaolin Kung Fu, Baguazhang, Xing Chuan, depending on how people practice them, but it could be considered a form of Qigong. Neigong is underneath though, right? Qigong is up here, Neigong is another type of Qigong. It's very often Neigong is a more quiescent, internal, maybe invisible type of Qigong. So a lot of Qigong is, you know, movement based. There's movement that you can see, whereas like the small universe just looks like, well, if you're doing it standing, it just looks like standing meditation. If you're doing it seated, and you can do both, it looks like sitting meditation, but there's something specific going on. We're specifically directing Qi through the run and do meridians, down the center line here, then up the back, the center line, around in an orbit in a specific way with specific breathing techniques. But that's Neigong. It's more quiescent, yes, but I would never judge someone. If someone wants to call that Qigong, fine. There is no official ancient term. Maybe they use the term Neigong more often for that, but the terms change. Just understand that these terms have changed throughout history. What are some of the other famous or popular terms? Yangsheng was popular for a long period of time. So, you know, there are periods in history, if you could travel back in time, if you use the term Qigong, they might just have an idea what you're talking about because the terms are clear, energy, and Gong is just such a common term in Chinese, even classical Chinese. But they would be like, oh, you mean Yangsheng, right? And then there was so much secrecy in the arts that it depends on where you are in history and who you're talking to. So don't be confused by these techniques. And in fact, if you are confused, go ahead and ask me questions. You can ask them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer. I'll do my best to take things that are confusing for you and clarify them so that they are clearer and you can make better decisions, decisions that will impact your physical and your mental health and maybe even your spiritual health. Okay, so I hope that clears things up a little bit. Neigong is fantastic. My Qigong 301 program is full of it, full of Neigong. And, you know, these are techniques that students are not just experiencing these subtle skills of these advanced techniques, but they're getting benefits from them. So it's one thing to feel the orbit of the small universe, which you should be able to feel, or to feel bone marrow washing, like to feel the subtleties of directing Qi to the bone marrow. That's one aspect. And Qi sensations are good and they're important, but that's not it. That's not where it stops, right? You should be getting benefits from it. So for example, if we are cleansing the lung meridians, but the organs themselves, the lungs, and then you experience some benefits that make sense according to Chinese medicine, according to the lung meridian, releasing old grief, or your lung function improves, or something like that. That's really what we're after, right? In the modern era, we're practicing Qigong for concrete benefits, or even spiritual Qigong, like the cosmic shower that I teach. If you catch a glimpse of the Tao, if you catch a glimpse of something that is bigger than us, that we are really a part of nature, for example, like we view nature, like this beautiful grapevine that I have in my backyard, as something separate from me, but it's not. This is me, right? I am this grapevine. We are both nature. And when you glimpse that in a way that's not just intellectual, you might reduce your fear of death or lose your anxiety a little bit, even temporarily, which is such a relief. So that's why we practice these arts, and that's why we might want to learn advanced skills, advanced Neigong skills, for example, okay? So if you're still confused about some terminology or something another teacher said, drop something in the comments and I'll do my best to clarify for you. I hope this was helpful. My goal is always to help you to empower yourselves for your own healing, right? Because like I often say, really a lot of my teaching is what I needed in my 20s, right? I teach to a younger version of myself, and that ends up helping a lot of you because you guys need, regardless of your age, you often need what I needed in my 20s. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you understand a little bit more about the difference between Neigong and Qigong. And again, if you have questions, drop them and I'll do my best to answer them.